Hello and good morning to everyone. So in this video we will be discussing all the four questions of weekly contest 502. So let's start with question 1, which is lead code 3931, that is check adjacent digit difference. So basically in this question we are given a string s which consists of digits from 0 to 9, and now what we have to do is now we check if the absolute difference between every pair of adjacent digits is at most 2, then we have to return true. And if any adjacent digits has difference greater than 2, then we have to return false, right? And we have to check the absolute difference between the digits. So let's see an example. So here we are given the string 132. So here we have digits 1 3, the difference is 2, then 3 2, difference is 1. So none of the difference is greater than 2, so we return true. So our answer is true. If suppose here we have 4, if we have 4, then this difference would have become 3, and 3 is greater than 2, then we have to return false, right? So this is our question. So let's see the constraints. So the string length is up to 100. Like we can have 100 characters, we can have 100 characters in the string, and the digits consist of only, and string consists of only digits. So let's see the approach. So basically what we have to do is we have to take two adjacent digits or characters a and b, and then we have to either we can convert them to number and then take their absolute difference, right? First thing is this, like, so if you have to convert them to number, then we just do a minus character 0. So it will convert the character a into number a, and same thing for b, and then take absolute difference of a minus b, and then check whether if it is greater than 2, then we return false. Or the second thing is that we can directly take difference of a and b without converting them to number, because see, because both a and b will give us ASCII values, will be giving us ASCII values. So their difference of these ASCII values will be same as difference of their a and b in numbers, will be same as difference of a and b in numbers, because a in number is a minus character 0 and b in number is b minus character 0, right? So this minus minus will become, so if we solve this equation, it will become a minus b minus character 0 plus character 0. So this will get cancelled out, so we can directly take difference a minus b, right? So let's see the code part. So we iterate over the string from 0 to let's say length is n minus 1. Then we take difference of character at s of I and character of s of I plus 1, and if this difference is greater than 2, then we have to return false, and else at the end we return true. So this is our question number 1, right? So let's move to the question number 2. So in question number 2, which is lead code 3932, we have the name is count kth roots in a range. So basically in this question we are given three integers l, r and k, and it is given an integer y is said to be a perfect kth power. An integer y is said to be a perfect kth power if there exists an integer x such that y is equal to k ki power x, then this y is called as perfect kth power, right? So now what we have to do is we have to return the number of integers y in the range l to r that are perfect kth powers, right? So in the range l to r we just have to count the total number of perfect kth powers, and then we have to return the count. So let's see the example. So here we are given l is equal to 1, r is equal to 9 and k is equal to 3. So we have to return the number of y's in the range 1 to 9 such that x cube lies in the range 1 to 9. So when x is equal to 1, 1 cube is equal to 1, 1 lies in the range, yes. Then 2 cube, which is 8 also lies in the range. Then 3 cube, which is 27, is out of the range. So only two values of y, that is y is equal to 1 and y is equal to 8. For only two values of y lies in this range, right? So our output is 2, right? So let's see the constraints. So our L and R can be up to 10 ki power 9, right? Our range can be up to 10 ki power 9 and k can be up to 30. K can be up to 30. So let's move to the approach part. So we have to count the numbers in the range L to R which are perfect kth powers, right? And a number is perfect kth power if y is equal to k ki power x for some integer x. So now what we do is instead of generating all the powers, instead of generating all the kth powers, what we do, we just count how many integers y is equal to k ki power x satisfy that y is lesser than equal to n, right? If n is our upper limit, right? Because every x produces a valid perfect kth power y, right? Every x produces a valid, right? So how we will be counting, perfect kth numbers that are lesser than equal to n? How we will be counting that, right? So we have seen example where we are our k is equal to 3 and let's say our n is equal to 9, right? So y will be 1 and y will be 8. That is only two powers, 1 and 8 are lesser than equal to 9. So how we find that? So if we do 9 ki power 1 by 3, so 9 ki power 1 by 3 and then take floor of that, so it will give us 2, right? Because 9 ki power 1 by 3 is something 2 point something. So if we take floor value of that, so that will be 2 and 2 is our answer. So to find the count of perfect kth numbers lesser than equal to n, what we do is we take n ki power 1 by k and then take floor value of that, right? So let's see an example. So suppose if you have n is equal to 30, and our k is equal to 2, so what are the possible values? 1 square, 2 square, up to 5 square. 5 square is also 25, which is less than 30. Then we have 6 square, which is 36. 36 is greater than 30. So this want to be considered. So how many values? 5 values are considered, right? But we can't iterate and find these values. So we just, what we'll do is we'll take square root of 30. We'll take square root because k is equal to 2. So we take 30 ki power 1 by 2, which is something 5 point something value, 5 point something. So if we take floor value of it, it will give us 5 and we can see 5 is our answer, right? So to find the count of perfect kth power lesser than equal to n, what we do, we take n ki power 1 by k and then take floor value of that. It will give us the count of perfect kth number lesser than equal to n, right? But so this is for n. Now here we are given a range L to R. We have to find in the range. So first we consider n is equal to R. Then we solve for all the values. We get all the values lesser than equal to R. And then if we subtract all the values lesser than L, like these values, so we count up to R and then subtract values up to L minus 1. Then we get our answer in the range L to R, right? So we count up to R and then subtract count up to L minus 1. So it will give us the count from L to R, right? So this way we will solve this. But we have a issue over here, that when we find floor of n ki power 1 by k, right? So here to find n ki power 1 by k, we will be using power function. Right? But power function has some floating point precision error, right? It has some floating point precision errors. So sometimes, suppose our answer is 2, but it will give us 2.99. So if we take floor of 2.99, so it will give us 2 instead of 3. So instead of using power function and floor function, what we'll do is we'll use binary search. We will use binary search to find floor of n की power 1 by k value, right? To find this value we will be using binary search, right? So what we'll do is we'll take our lower value and upper value, let's say L and R, then we find mid. And for mid we check whether mid की power k is lesser than or equal to n, so if it is lesser than n, if it is lesser than or equal to n, that means mid value can be a valid root. Then what we'll do is then we try for larger values, right? Then we try for larger values. So otherwise if mid की power k is greater than n, that means the mid is not a valid root, so we try for smaller values, right? And then using binary search we find this value, that is floor of n की power 1 by k, right? So this way we'll solve this question, but there are some overflow issues. So when we try to find mid की power k, we don't directly use power function. Because that can give us overflow state. So what we do is we use a loop from 1 to k. And then every time we multiply our result with mid, right? That is answer into mid, and then we check whether answer into mid is greater than n or not, right? But suppose at some point answer into mid overflows. So instead of doing answer into mid, what we do answer is greater than n by mid or not, right? That is from this mid, that is we send this multiplication from mid, this multiplication to divisor, right? That is answer is greater than n by mid to handle the overflow issue, right? And one special case is there, that is for 0. As we know 0 की power k is 0, so 0 is also perfect kth power. So when L is equal to 0, so in that case we have to manually include 0 in our answer, right? So this is our special case. So let's see the code part. So in code part we have three functions. One is possible function. So what it does, it will check whether mid की power k is less than or equal to n or not, right? It is less than or equal to n or not. So when mid is equal to 0, so we have to handle this case separately, because we are doing answer is greater than n by mid. So when mid is equal to 0, this division is not possible. That's why we are handling mid is equal to 0 case separately, and we are doing answer is greater than n by mid, because to handle the overflow situation, right? So this will check whether mid की power k is less than or equal to n, right? And this is a function which will return us the floor value of n की power 1 by k. So this function will return the floor value of n की power 1 by k. So here we have taken all the numbers from 0 to n, then we use binary search, and then we find mid, and then we check whether mid is a perfect valid root or not. If mid is a valid root, then we declare our answer is equal to mid, and then we make low is equal to mid plus 1. Then we try to find a bigger answer. But if mid is not a valid root, then we try to find a smaller valid root than mid, right? So this will give us the count of valid roots, right? This will give us the value of floor of n की power 1 by k, right? And then this is our main function. So in our main function we are finding floor of r की power 1 by k that is the value stored in right, and then we try to find floor of L minus 1 की power 1 by k, and then to find our answer we will subtract both the values because we have to find the answer in the range L to R, right? And this is a special case, that is if L is equal to 0, if L is equal to 0 we have to include 0 as the answer because 0 की power k is 0 and that is a perfect number, right? Kth power, and then we increase answer by 1 and at the end we return our answer. So I hope I am able to explain you question number 1 and question number 2 properly, right? Now let's move to question number 3, which is lead code 3933, that is largest local values in matrix part 2. So in this question we are given a n cross m integer matrix named as matrix which contains non-negative integers, and now a non-zero cell row comma column checks all the cell nearby it. So suppose if the value of that particular cell row comma column is x, right, is x, then what it does is then it will consider every cell within x rows. Suppose if this is a cell, then x rows above, x rows downward, x column in left direction, x column in right direction. So basically a square of side 2x plus 1, right? So it will consider every cell in this square of side 2x plus 1, and it will ignore all the cells that are outside the matrix, right? So it will consider all the cells that are present in this square, right? And then the cell row comma column, the cell this row comma column is a local maximum, if it is non-zero, that is greater than 0, and it has no considered cell that has a value greater than x. So this cell has the value x. So if all the cells that are present in this square has value lesser than x, then this cell, that is row comma column, will be considered as a local maxima. Now what we have to do is we have to return an integer which denotes the total number of local maxima present in the matrix. Total number of local maxima in the matrix. So let's see an example to understand it. So this cell r comma c, it has a non-zero value. That is 2. So it will consider 2 rows above, 2 rows below, 2 columns on the right direction, 2 columns on the left direction. So this square, right? So it will see all the cells in this square, ignoring the corner cells, ignoring the cells where the distance is 2, So if you see here, ignore the cells where both the row distance and column distance are exactly equal to x, that means the corner cells. So this has ignored the corner cells. So in this square it will see all the cells except the corner cells, right? Now we see all the cells has value 0, which is lesser than 2. So now this cell is basically a local maxima. But let's say here if we have value 3, then this cell would not be a local maxima, because in the preferred cells, or considered cells, we have a cell which has value greater than our current cell, so then that current cell won't be a local maxima, So now we have to find the total number of local maximas in the matrix, right? So let's see the constraints. So n, which is a matrix length, so n is up to 200. Even m, that is the number of columns, is also up to 200, and the values present in the matrix is also up to 200, right? So these are the constraints. So let's move to our approach part. So now what we have to do is, for every non-zero cell, r comma c having value as x, we have to check all the cells that are that are that's whose row distance is less than or equal to x, and whose column distance is less than or equal to x. That means they are present in the square, in a square of side 2x plus 1, having center at r comma c, right? So it is also given that it will form a square centered at r comma c with side 2x plus 1. So now we check all the cells present in that square, but we ignore the corner cells. Where the row distance and column distance is exactly equal to x, which is corner cells, right? We have to find the local maxima. Now what is a local maxima? So a cell r comma c is said to be a local maxima if no considered cells means no cells in square has the value greater than the x, or greater than x is the value at r comma c. So if no considered cell has value greater than x, then our current cell is a local maxima, else it is not a local maxima. So let's start with the brute force idea. So in brute force what we'll do is, so for every cell r comma c having value greater than 0, we scan the whole square of side 2x plus 1, skipping the four corners, and then check whether any value is greater than x. If any value is greater than x, so x is our value at r comma c. So if any value is greater than x, then that current cell is not a local maxima, else it is a local maxima and will increase our count. But the thing is that it is too slow, our brute force approach is too slow, and it will give us time limit exceed. So let's see the time complexity of this approach. So total how many cells we have? So total we have n cross m cells, which is 200 into 200. So total cells 200 into 200, and for every cell we have to scan a square of side 2x plus 1. So the total cells that we have to scan is 2x plus 1 ka square, 2x plus 1 ka square. So which will be 401 into 401, right? So the total time complexity will be 200 into 200 into 401 into 401. So it will give us TLE. Now you may say that we don't have 401 cells into 401 cells. So let's say in worst case it will be 200 into 200. So the total time complexity is big of 200 ki power 4. So it will also give us time limit exceed. So this brute force approach won't work. So what we'll do is we'll optimize our solution. Now in brute force we are scanning all the nearby cells. Right? But if you see in the question, we care about only those cells whose value is greater than x, because those are the cells which can invalidate our current answer, which can invalidate our current local maxima, right? Because suppose if our current cell has value x, then there is a cell then if there is a nearby cell that has value greater than x, then this current cell will not be local maxima. So we only care about those nearby cells that has value greater than x, right? That has value greater than x. So what we'll do is, so we'll create a data structure which will store coordinates of all the cells as per their values. So let's see an example to get this line, because this is a important line. So we have taken a matrix 1 2 3 4. So now for value 1, what are the coordinates? 0 0. For value 2 we store all the coordinates where value 2 is present. So value 2 is present at 0 comma 1. Similarly we store all, so for all the values, so for all the values, for all the values we store all the coordinates, we store all the coordinates where that particular value is present, where that particular value is present, right? Now next thing what we'll do is after storing, so whenever we get a cell, whenever we get a cell, let's say with value x, with value x, so suppose if x is equal to 1, so now instead of considering all the nearby cells, we only consider cells whose value is greater than x. So here x is equal to 1, so we consider all the cells whose value is 2 3 4 and so on, right? So now instead of scanning all the nearby cells, we only scan larger valued cells, right? And as we know, our values are bounded. Our in the constraints we are given that we have values from 0 to 200 only. So the total possible values we have is 201, right? So when we group coordinates by value, this will become efficient due to the smaller constraints, due to the smaller constraints of the values, right? Now, so next what we'll do is for every cell, let's say r comma c having value x, we scan all the cells with values greater than x, right? We scan the data structure, take the value, and then check if it is greater than x, then we scan all the coordinates, stored there, like, right? Let's say the stored coordinates are r1 and c1, then we find the distance between this coordinate and our current cell r comma c. We find the distance, we find the row distance, that is dr, and we find the column distance, we find the row distance and column distance between the two coordinates, and then we check if the row distance and column distance both are lesser than equal to x, that means this coordinate is present inside the square, inside square, right? But we also check whether they are present at corner or not, that means their row distance equal to x, and if column distance is equal to x, then we ignore that. But if they are not the corners, if they are not the corners, and if they are not the corners, that means we have found a cell whose value is greater than x, and it is present in the square, right? It is present in the square. So our current cell, is not a local maxima, because we have found a cell, in the uh, considered area or considered square whose value is greater than x. So our current cell is invalid, so we stop immediately, right? We stop immediately at that point. So let's try to understand with the help of a dry run. So we have taken the matrix 1 2 3 4, then we have store coordinates by their values. So for this we have taken a position array of type vector, and is storing pair of int comma int. So position of 1 will store the coordinates 0 comma 0, position 2 is present at 0 comma 1, 3 is present at 1 comma 0, 4 is present at 1 comma 1. So we stored these values. Now we start with each cell. So at cell 1, our value is x is equal to 1. So now we scan all the coordinates or all the cells having value greater than 1, that means 2 3 and 4, right? So first we start with checking value equal to 2. So for value equal to 2, our stored coordinates is 0 comma 1. So first of all we find distance between this coordinate and our current coordinate is 0 comma 0, right? So we compute the row distance and column distance, then we check whether this this cell having value greater than x is present in our square or not, that means the row distance should be lesser than or equal to x, and the column distance should be lesser than or equal to x. So yes, the current cell is present in the square, Now the next thing that we check, after checking whether it is present in square or not, we check whether is it a cornered cell or not, whether it is present in the corner of the square or not. So for that we check if row distance is equal to x and column distance is equal to x. So no, row distance is not equal to x. So this cell 0 comma 1 is not present in the corner of the square. So now this cell is considered, because this cell is present in square have value greater than x, but not in corner, so now we have found a cell whose value is greater than x and is present in the considered cell. So now our current cell has become invalid. So now our current cell, which is 0 comma 0, is not a local maxima, So if you see the steps that we have taken, so first of all we iterate. So if our current value is x, we iterate over all the coordinates whose value is greater than x. Then we take the coordinate, find the distance between our current coordinate and that coordinate, and then check if row distance is less than or equal to x and column distance is less than or equal to x. That means the current cell is present inside the square. If it is present inside the square, then we check whether is it a corner cell. So for corner cell, row distance is equal to x and column distance is equal to x. So if it is a corner cell, then we ignore it. Else we have got a cell who is present inside square and whose value is greater than x, so now our current cell that is r comma c is invalid. So we stop at this point. So this way we'll check all the cells, and then count the total number of cells that are local maxima. So let's move to the code part. So in code part, we have taken n, which is the matrix size, and m, which is the number of columns. Then we have stored coordinates as per their values, right? We store coordinates as per their values in the position array, right? And then after storing this, we have iterated over each cell r comma c. Take the value x, that is matrix of r comma c, and if the value is 0, then we skip it, because we have to do for non-zero cells, right? Then we have taken a boolean variable, okay, whose initial value is true, and then we check all the cells whose value is greater than x, right? So we have started iterating from value is equal to x plus 1 up to value equal to 100, right? Then we take the coordinates from the position array and find the distance. Then we check whether that particular coordinate lies inside the square or not. If it lies inside the square, then we ignore the corners, right? but if it is a corner cell, we skip it. Else we mark OK is equal to false, because we have got a cell whose value is greater than x and that is present inside the square, and we break checking, right? We stop there. But if OK is equal to true, means we haven't marked OK equal to false, that means there is no cell whose value is greater than x. That means our current cell is a local maxima. Then we increase our answer, and at the end we return our answer. So I hope I am able to explain you this solution also properly. So if you like the video, please make sure to like, share and subscribe the channel. Thank you. To question number 4, which is LeetCode 3934, that is smallest unique subarray. So in this question we are given an integer array named as nums, and what we do is we have to find the minimum length of a subarray that is not identical to any other subarray in nums, right? So, and we have to return an integer which denotes the minimum possible length of such a subarray. So if we see, basically we have to return length of a subarray subarray whose frequency is equal to 1, means that means there is no identical other subarray present in the array. So let's see an example. So if we take length 1, if we take length 1 subarray, then 3, and the frequencies it appears 3 times, so it is not unique. Then if we take length 2 subarrays, then it is 3 3, and it is appearing 2 times, so it is also not unique. Then we take 3 length subarray, 3 length subarray, its frequency is 1 because it is only one time, so our answer is this subarray, and its length is 3, so 3 is our answer. So the smallest unique subarray, so the smallest unique subarray is 3 comma 3 comma 3, and its length is 3, so 3 is our answer. So let's move to the constraints part. So in the constraint, our array length is 10 ki power 5. So either big of n solution, n log n solution, n square solution will give us time limit exceed, and each element in the array is up to 10 ki power 5, right? So let's move to the approach part. So basically what we need the smallest length L, such that there exists one subarray of length L, and it occurs only once, right? That is, there is no other subarray that is similar to that subarray, right? So if some unique subarray exists at length L, suppose there is a unique subarray having length L, then if we append something here, if it's append something to this length, to this subarray, then still it will be unique, because this part is unique. So if you append anything to it, then that larger length will also be unique, right? So extending a unique subarray, so if you extend a unique subarray, it will be unique, right? It will be unique. So if you see our answer is monotonic, so we can use binary search over here, so what we'll do is we will apply binary search, on length L, so what we'll do is, so we'll take every candidate subarray of length L, and then we have to check whether there are any subarray of size L, which is appearing only once, so what, let's say if our L is equal to 3, that means we take all subarrays whose size are 3, and then we check the frequencies, their frequencies, and then we take that subarray whose frequency is 1, means let's say a b c d right, a b, so 3 abc is one string, bcd is one, cda is one, let's say its frequency is 2, let's say its frequency is 3, and its frequency is 1, so this cda is our answer, this cda subarray is answer because it is unique. So if you'll brute force, if you'll compare these substrings with each other, then it will take big of L time, right? Because we have to compare them character by character. So to optimize this comparison, we'll be using rolling hash, so in rolling hash what we'll do is we'll convert every subarray, into a hash value, and also if two subarrays are equal, then they will be having same hash value, so comparing hash value will take only big of one time. So earlier we will taking big of L time for the comparison. Now using the hash values, using the hash value we can compare in big of one time. So for faster comparison we have using rolling hash. Now what is a rolling hash? So normally if you have to write a number 1 2 3 4 in a base value 10, then how will write 10 की power 1 into 10 cube plus 2 into 10 square plus 3 into 10 plus 4. So this way we write 1 2 3 4. So similarly the hash value will be written in as a into base. We have to take some base number a into base cube plus b into base square plus c into base plus d. So this way we'll write our hash function, we'll write our hash number, right, using some base. So if you see here, what we need the power of the base, we need the power of base square, base cube. So we are needing, so to compute the hash, what we need power of base. So what we'll do is we'll use an array power which will store all the powers of the base from base की power 0 to base की power n. That array will store all the powers and then we use those powers to compute our hash, right? Now the next thing what we'll do is we need a quick way to calculate our hash value, of any subarray. And then for that what we'll use prefix hash array. So prefix sum. So prefix sum will help us to get the sum of any subarray quickly, right? So similarly prefix hash array will help us to get the hash of a subarray quickly, right? So this prefix hash array will help us to get the hash of a subarray quickly. So let's see an example to get it. So now suppose we have taken this nums array 2579, then the prefix hashes that we build are prefix of 1, so it will be 2, then prefix of 2 is 2 into base plus 5, 2 into base plus 5, 2 into base plus 5. Then prefix of 3 will be, every time we'll multiply this with base, to get this. So 2 into base square plus 5 into base plus we add the current number, that is 7. Then again we multiply this with base, and add the current number, that is 9. Then we get this prefix next, right, where b is equal to the base value. So this way we'll build our prefix array. Now in this suppose we want prefix of 7 comma 9, we want the prefix of subarray 7 comma 9. So our full hash value is 2 into b cube plus 5 into b square plus 7b into 9. This is the full hash value. And what we want prefix of this subarray 7 comma 9. So here the unwanted part, this is the unwanted part, right? So the unwanted prefix is 2b plus 5, but its power, if you see, its power is smaller. So what we'll do is, so before subtracting the unwanted prefix, what we'll do is we will shift this unwanted prefix by multiplying it such that it will be compatible with it. So here the power is smaller by b square, so we multiply this unwanted prefix by b square and then subtract the full hash value, then subtract the unwanted hash value from the full hash value. So we get 7b plus 9 directly, right? So if you see, we have the unwanted hash as 2b plus 5 and b square is the smaller power. So when we multiply we get this, then we subtract this from the fuller hash, so we get the hash value of the array, subarray. So if you see a formula, if we have to find hash of range L to R, then what we'll do is, then we take prefix of R plus 1, then we subtract from that we subtract prefix of L into the power difference, of R minus L plus 1, right? So here here range was, we have to find the range from 2 to 3, 2 to 3, right? Prefix of 2 to 3. So prefix of r plus 1, prefix of r plus 1 is, r plus 1 is the whole, this whole prefix, this is the whole prefix, minus prefix of l is 2b into 5, and the power difference between, so power difference between 3 to 3 minus 2 plus 1 is 2. So power difference of 2 is, power of 2 is b square, power of 2 is b square, so we multiply with that and we get our prefix. So this formula help us to find the prefix in big O fun time, right? So we find the hash of any subarray in big O fun time. Now let's see the code part. So in the code part we have taken the size of the array, and then this is our base, this is our base value that we use to find our prefix, right? So then we have two vectors, one is to store the power of the base and the other to calculate the prefix hash, to store the prefix hash, right? And then we are iterating over the array to calculate the power and to calculate the prefix. So power of I plus 1 is basically the previous power into the base value, but prefix of I plus 1 is equal to previous prefix into base plus the current number, right? So this is prefix of I plus 1. Now this function get hash, it will return the hash of the subarray from L to R. So here we see the formula, prefix of R plus 1 minus prefix of L into power of R minus L plus 1. So we have seen how this formula has been derived. Now this function will check whether is there any unique subarray of length L, length len exist or not. So what it does is, it has taken a map which will store hash value and the frequency of that particular hash value. So we take a string as generate hash for that, and then store that hash value in the map and increase its frequency, right? So here we are taking every subarray, generating hash for that subarray and increase frequency of that hash in the map, and then we iterate over the map, and now what we want, we want a subarray whose frequency is 1, so we iterate over the we iterate over the frequency map and check if the frequency equal to 1, that means there is a subarray which is unique, so else we return false, right? So here we are using binary search, to check. So first we find the midpoint and then check if if we get are we getting any subarray whose length is equal to mid, are we getting any subarray whose length is equal to mid, and that is appearing only once. So this possible function will tell us, so if it returns true, that means there is a subarray whose length is equal to mid and which is appearing only once. So we store answer is equal to mid, and then we try for smaller subarrays. But if mid is not possible, then we have to find for the larger subarrays, right? And at the end we return our answer. So I hope I am able to explain you the question number 4 also properly. So if you like the video, please make sure to like, share and subscribe the channel. Thank you.